When the weather didn't turn and get better for us after our Memorial Day weekend here in Santa Fe, we all decided it would be best for us to just take a good long break and come back and start Soar America again once the weather got better. So we took off from Santa Fe and we headed east to go back and visit family. We went from New Mexico to Texas and then into Oklahoma. And we spent our first night in Oklahoma at the Last Stop store. It was our Harvest Host. And so we had breakfast burritos from there the next morning that were really good, and then did a little run at Lake Eufaula State Park. It was a beautiful place, nice place to take a little break and get some exercise before we got on the road again. Then we went through Arkansas and stopped at Titan Ranch. And Titan Ranch is an underground missile silo that a man bought and uncovered and has turned it into a bed and breakfast. And it also serves as a Harvest Host. So we were able to camp right outside of the entrance to the missile silo. There were some there was a Class A and a travel trailer there also, so they have a lot of space for Harvest Host rigs. And then lucky for us, they didn't have anyone staying at the bed and breakfast that night, so the next day we got to take a tour of the missile silo. We traveled down some stairs about 30 feet to go into the missile silo. One of the things they always like to do on the tour is have one of the guests open up the big blast door. It's a massive door that they said they've never oiled, and it still works great. So then you go in, and the missile silo has 3 floors. And because all the floors are underground, they're numbered backwards from what they are above ground. So when you walk in, you come in on the 2nd floor. Above you is the 1st floor, and below you is the 3rd floor. So on that 2nd floor, they have a little hidden room they like to show everybody that's a little bathroom that kind of pops out of the wall. So that was a neat little feature they added. And then when you go into that 2nd floor, it has a room that has some whiteboards. It looks like it would be a good place for some sort of meeting. It also has some beds in there. And in that room, you can really see the springs that hold up the floors. The floors are not connected to the walls, so that if there is any kind of blast or explosion, then the floors move with those springs so that it doesn't collapse, it just moves. So then you go up a set of stairs to the 1st floor, which is the top layer. And that is where they have their master bathrooms, or their master bedroom set up, their master suite. And it's really, really nice. They have a beautiful setup there. And then you head down to the 3rd floor, the bottom layer, and that is where they have a big movie theater. And they have their kitchen. And so when you rent out this bed and breakfast, you get the whole thing. You get all 3 floors. I think they said they charge about $300 a night. So people have rented it out for business meetings, for retreats, for birthday parties, and then also just to stay the night. But really neat place, and the guys are so nice to do those tours for anybody who comes, as long as nobody's staying in the bed and breakfast that night. So then from Arkansas, we headed on through Missouri, and then headed on into Tennessee to visit Tim's family. We hadn't seen them for about a year and a half, so it was really nice to get to see them. And then moved on to Kentucky to visit my family. So we saw my parents, they got a chance to spoil the dogs. And while we were there, we had a really strange thing happen. This random dog showed up right after we got there. This sweet little boy showed up in the yard this morning. We don't know where he came from. The neighbors don't know where he came from. But he is so sweet. He joined us for our run this morning and has just been hanging out under the van all day. Such a sweet boy. The funny thing was, nobody knew where he was from. One of the neighbors asked us if he was our dog because he would go out running with us every morning. He would just join us along the way and run with us. So nobody knew where this dog was from. We saw him every day we were there, and we saw him the morning that we left. But Mom and Dad have not seen him since. He was the sweetest dog, but we have no idea where he came from or where he went. So I'm sure the neighbors think he was our dog because he came when we got there and he left when we left. So kind of funny. Tim named him Ralph, and so we referred to him as Ralph even though we didn't know his name. But one of the things we wanted to do while we were there was get service on Elsie. The van was due for her 80,000 mile checkup and needed an oil change, but when we took it into the Mercedes dealer in Nashville, they told us they would have to keep her 3 to 4 days. And when that's your house and your dogs live in it with you, that's a lot to ask. So instead, Tim ended up changing the oil himself in Mom and Dad's driveway. So we got the service done, which was one of the big things we wanted to get accomplished while we were on this break from Soar America. Eric and Julie also took a break. They had the decision to make once we left whether they were going to continue, whether they wanted to wait it out a little bit in Texas, but just looking at the weather and the patterns that were happening, they decided it would be better for them to go back to Huntsville, back to where they live, wait it out, and then come back out when the weather improved.
We came back to the area for a day or so, hoping for the best weather-wise, and it just didn't materialize. The forecasts did not look worth flying. So we decided after a couple of weeks of waiting for it we just go back home and wait there.
So we went to visit them down at their home. We had some other friends that we wanted to visit down there too because we used to live there. There are several ways that you can camp. One way we've talked about is boondocking, where you camp without any hookups. You don't have power other than your batteries, and you just use the water out of your tanks. Well, last night for the first time, we moochdocked. So moochdocking is where you spend the night in a friend's driveway. So we stayed last night in Eric and Julie's driveway, used a garden hose to hook up to water and hooked up to power on their house. Nice way to stay in the van at a friend's house. So they gave us a great spot in their driveway behind their fence, so the dogs were able to get out and play in their yard and run around and enjoy it. They made themselves at home so well that Peggy took over the cat's bed. So they let us mooch dock there, and we were able to have dinner at my favorite Mexican restaurant, Rosie's, with our friend Tammy, and just had a good time getting to visit. Then we decided to make our way to Colorado, to another place we used to live. So then from Alabama, we traveled back through Tennessee, Kentucky, and into Illinois the first night, where we spent the night at a Cracker Barrel. We have come to love staying at Cracker Barrel. This is our third time to stay at a Cracker Barrel parking lot. And the thing that always I think is funny is just that minutes after I roll out of bed, I'm sitting in a Cracker Barrel having breakfast. I'm like barely awake by the time I sit down to eat.
Nice easy breakfast.
It is, and no cleanup. So yesterday we started in Tennessee, we drove through Kentucky and into Illinois. And one of the funny things about these long travel days is waking up in the morning and thinking, where am I? After Illinois, we went through Missouri again and then into Kansas. And in Kansas, we stayed in the tiniest little town, Park, Kansas, but it was so cute. We stayed at the Double D RV park there, which was really nice. So we have a nice little place to park tonight. And then about 4 hours left from here in Park, Kansas. We did a run the next morning and got to see the beauty of the farmland there. And then Ellie and I did a walk in town and got to see the town a little bit. Neat little place there in Kansas. And then from there moved on to Colorado. While we were in Colorado, we got to run some of our favorite running routes that we used to run all the time and see friends and enjoy some time there. And then we got the email from Eric that he was ready to go
I
again.
was watching the weather forecasts in this area, North Texas, every day while we were home, hoping to see a trend of it getting better. And it did appear to get better over time. Let's head back out.
And so here I am, back down in Santa Fe. Tomorrow I will meet Eric and Julie in Brownfield, Texas, for us to hopefully finish the journey. When we arrived in Brownfield, if you'll remember from our week 2 video, Eric told us we were about 40% through the mileage. So we have a little over half left to go. So stay tuned because there is much more flying still to come. Good to be back here. Good to be back going to Soar America again. Excited to finish the journey. So stay tuned and keep up with the rest of what we're doing. Subscribe to the channel and hope you enjoy the rest of our time as we continue to Soar America.